All right, okay. Thank you, Dr. Zurina. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank everyone and welcome you guys to our first sessions of Santai Sarjana. Okay, and I would like to mention that this session is going to be live stream as well through FK YouTube Live, inshallah. Okay, before we begin, maybe we can recite Kitab Al-Fatihah, inshallah. All right. Okay. All right. Alhamdulillah. I would like to thank everyone and especially our lovely speaker, in volunteering to be the first speaker of Santai Sarjana for this year. Okay, so before we begin, maybe I can brief you a little bit about what is Santai Sarjana is all about. It is a platform for scholars to share their experiences, study tips, and even motivational talks to postgraduate students on how to keep motivated and excited in getting to the finishing lines. So we plan to go with a monthly meeting, but it all depends on the speakers. All right. So I do not want to take your time. Maybe I can briefly introduce our lovely speaker for today. So Dr. Zurina Khairuddin is the Deputy Dean of Research and Development in the Faculty of Languages and Communication, and she did her PhD at the University of Sussex, United Kingdom, and her current research interest is applied linguistics, particularly identity studies, discourse studies, and TESOL. So for those interested, maybe you want to get in contact with Dr. Zurina to know about her current research. So without further ado, I'll give the session to you, Dr. Zurina. You may start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shafa. Assalamualaikum and hello, everyone. I hope you had a pleasant day so far. So my name is Zurina, and can I just share screen, Dr. Shafa? Okay, so the sharing that I'm doing today is about the unwritten path. So the reason I chose this title is because I think with PhD, we don't know where it's going to lead us. We don't know the challenges that we're going to face. We assume we're going to be okay, but at the end of the day, there are always things that are unexpected, you know. And in fact, one of the hashtags that I used during my studies was Nadzu, the world not taken, the road not taken. So because because not everybody takes this path, right? And not everybody is willing to take it, and because it's so unpredictable, a lot of people do it in less than 3 years. A lot of people do it in more than 8 years. Some people finish after 10 years. Some people do it at the age of 70. Some people do it at the age of before 30. So it's very different for a lot of people. It's very different. It's very, very diverse. And this is one of the reasons that I choose the title today. And what I'm sharing today is not something that that I think, okay, it's gonna work. It's not, but it's just a sharing from my experience. Okay, and first of all, I would like to dedicate this PhD that I've gotten last year to my parents, who have been the main support, the main pillar of my my journey. And if you notice in here, the photo that I'm sharing, it's them going with me to every day to the uni, for me to write. This is during my final year. So they follow me in the cold morning, and then we come back in the afternoon, and then we have dinner. But during when they're in the uni with me. I'll be in the library or I'll be in the computer lab, but they'll be outside in the cafe, you know, because not everyone is allowed into the library. So that's them, you know, also studying, okay, watching YouTube, you know, doing their own stuff, but they're always there to support me. So, and other than my parents, my family, obviously, my siblings, my nieces and nephews, my in-laws, they've always been there for me, supporting me, you know, giving me courage, and praying for me, you know. So as you see here, that's me. I cropped myself because I wasn't in Malaysia, so I cropped myself in the photo, you know, so that we can be a big family. We have an additional one in-law, but he's not in the photo. Okay, so what I'm sharing next is some things that I have done. Okay, so when I was in my final year, not final year, my second final year, my fourth year, we have this session called Shut Up and Write. So what we do is we use this Pomodoro technique, where Pomodoro is a time technique. So what you do is you time yourself working for 15 to 20 minutes. So it's up to you how long you think you can focus. So in this 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you write, okay? You type, you write, you do whatever that you want to do only on your work. And then after the 20 to 15 minutes, you take a 5-minute break, and then you do it again. You know, you do it another 15 minutes, and then you take another 5 minutes break. And then after the fourth 20 minutes of your work, you take a longer break. So this is my longer break that I screenshot here. When I get the 20-minute, my much deserved break, I think. And during the 15 to 20 minutes working, it's all focused, you know, and it helps me to focus as I listen to music, as sometimes I listen to Quranic verses on YouTube, so I just you know, just play them, and it helps to calm me down, and it helps me to focus really, really well. I don't suggest to listen to music that have lyrics, especially music that you like, because then you tend to follow along, so that deviates your focus a little bit. But if you are into classic, you know, then any piano or violin music or melody would be very helpful. And I think especially the Quranic verses is very helpful for me. And of course, during the 5-minute break. So at the uni, I have this group of Malaysians, 4 of them. So on the left, most left is Ida, Nana, Karina, and the most right is me. So we gather almost at least once a month or once a week to have our own SUW session. So when we do our SUW session, the 15 minutes, obviously, we will work. So someone will time, and then the 5-minute break is when we get coffee, you know, we take our break. So this is when we gossip, and then someone will time the 5 minutes, and then after the 5 minutes, we will work again. After the 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and gossip, continue. And in fact, we don't only gossip, but we also discuss. We discuss in terms of procedures, the university procedures. We discuss about it because the 4 of us, we come from different fields. Like Ida comes from the finance and economics, Nana comes from the law, Karina comes from education, and I come from the linguistic department. So everybody is very diverse. So to say that we help each other in terms of our content, no, we didn't really help each other in terms of that, but we help in terms of supporting. So you having a group doesn't mean that, you know, you have to be in a same field. Okay, so this is where sorry. So in terms of celebrating, I think it's always important to celebrate even the small achievements. You know, sometimes we think, oh my God, you know, I have to wait until I finish one chapter for me to actually celebrate, or go and go out and have fun. But no, sometimes it's that one day of work that you do is also an achievement. And there's a way that I learned where they say that you have to always make a list of the things that you want to do for the day, right? So after you finish, or after you cross out the list that you need to do, that achievement that you feel, celebrate it. These small achievements is very important to celebrate. And it's always also important to think about, okay, so what's next? After you celebrate the achievement, so what's next, right? And another thing is, I think one of the things that I also did was, rather than other than celebrating, I go for a walk. So a lot of people reflect, I think. Sometimes we forget to sit down and just don't think about any other stuff, but just wander your mind, right? So when you reflect, you get inspired, okay? And what I mean inspired is that you get ideas on what to write, because sometimes we get writer's block. You like it or not, it happens. You don't know what to write. You're staring at a page that you just can't seem to continue. So when that happens, you gotta go out. You gotta go out from the room. You gotta go out from your study room. You gotta move your study station. You gotta move your workstation. And because inspiration, it can come anytime it wants. It's so magical that sometimes you can get inspiration when you're having shower. I always get inspiration when I take shower. I don't know why. It is so burdening, because I think you can't take notes, because when you have that idea you want to do, oh God, you got to go out and write it. If not, you're going to forget about it. But so and sometimes when I go on when I get on the bus, that bus trip from my rental house to the uni, that also gives me time to think. I will sit and listen to music, and that helps me to think, and ideas come in. The first time that ideas actually came in, I had no notebook. So what I had to do was, I had to search my bag, and I finally found a pen and also a piece of paper, a receipt actually, and I wrote whatever it is that I wanted to, that came to my mind. And as soon as I reached the uni, I typed them out. So yes, there is people say, why can't you just use your mobile? Yes, we can always type, but sometimes typing stops your thinking. I don't know if it happens to everyone, but it happens to me. So I always resort to writing. So that's why I have 3 notebooks throughout my journey. The 3 notebooks are very helpful for me to help with inspirations, with notes, with my supervisory meetings. Everything is written there. So if I lose those books or those notes, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I mean, that not being the case, another way is for you to walk. I think walking is really helpful. Because I have 2 supervisors. One of my supervisors says, Zurina, you should go out and walk. It's a beautiful day. Don't just stay inside, because it's fasting month and it's summer. So sometimes you just don't want to go out, So when I went out to meet him, he said that, and I said, yeah, I know, Simon, but it's very hard to walk in the summer with the heat. So he said, yeah, that makes sense. But then, it helps to clear your mind, And I know it's hot in Malaysia as well, so probably it's not very much practical. But if you go for a morning walk, or go for an evening jog, so that would definitely clear your head. Okay. So rather than so another thing I wanted to mention was, if you don't like notebooks, then probably record yourself when you get ideas. There are people who like to send themselves voice notes, so that works as well, I think, especially if you don't have any other choices. Okay. So So another thing is I wanted to talk about discussions. You know, always, always, always discuss. I think I cannot emphasize this enough. It was very helpful to me to discuss what I think, if the ideas that I have make sense, if you know what I mean. And this can be done with same field colleagues because they would understand the theories that you want to use. They would understand the things that you're supposed to make sense, whether it makes sense, whether you're relating your data to the theory that you have chosen, if that makes sense. So it's very helpful. And I think especially when you have your data and you're stuck, not to say you're stuck, but it's more to saying like you're okay, so I have this data, I think I can do it with, I can use it with this theory, but does it make sense? The kind of questions you're asking yourself. And when you're asking yourself too much, you tend to second guess yourself, whether you've made the right decision. So other than discussing with your supervisors, obviously, whom you have to always refer to, also discuss with your colleagues. And it's very important, like I said. Why do I think this? Because from my experience, they're very helpful in the sense that sometimes your colleagues will say, but what about this? It's the question, what about this? It's like, that makes sense. It doesn't come to you, but it comes through your friend or through your colleagues. So that's very helpful. And sometimes, because what my supervisors did with my data was that, okay, so I told them, okay, I have the data. So what now? So they say, okay, so you read all this list. They give me like 20 lists, 20 books, a list of 20 books, or and okay, you read and you decide. So when we read, we have a lot of things in our mind. We have a lot of theories here, but which one makes sense? Almost all theories make sense, but which one do you want to proceed with? Which one is your passion? So at the end of the day, you discuss. Your supervisors can give you all this, but you will still have to decide. Okay. So another thing that I did was I also had really, really good support from the university, and they always organize these seminars, especially at the English school that I was at. So discussing your research at these seminars is very helpful as well. As of course there are your same colleagues, but because my school is also together with linguistics and literature, so some literature PhD students also come in to the session, so they give their perspective, and of course you can get from other perspectives as well. So whenever I would suggest, if let's say your faculty or your school suggests, to do seminars, or like a small scale one, like a 1 day, like this kind of session, where you share, grab the chance. If the school doesn't do it, then probably you can initiate, because this seminar that I was at was actually conducted by postgraduate students. It's not the lecturers who organized them. So it's the initiative that the students take, to help each other. And these seminars also help you to prepare for a conference that you want to go for, So it helps you to, okay, so this kind of questions have been asked, so you are ready, So always go to conferences as well. I think I went to a lot of conferences, about 5 to 6 conferences. And the feedback that I got from these conferences were very helpful as I built my argument for my findings and discussion chapters. So their feedback, sometimes they question, oh, okay, so this is how you interpret it. Why don't you interpret like this? Yes, you can listen to them, you can take note of what they comment, but at the end of the day, you have to decide whether you want to use this feedback or not. You may want to stick to, okay, so probably when people say, because one instance that I remember was there's this guy who came to my presentation, and he asked, okay, so why is it that that I describe the students as being agentive from this data? So as I explained to him, okay, he said, okay, probably you, and then he said this, probably you can justify further. And I added that argument into my thesis. So as this kind of feedback that you get, of course, you have to go to conferences that are related to your field, okay? Because sometimes if you go to, like, for example, if you're doing applied linguistics and then suddenly you go to a business conference, the scholars at this or the researchers at this conference may not be as helpful as you would go if you go to an applied to the same field of your studies. So the next thing is I have got the university support very much, a lot of support. You know, they give courses, they gave seminars, workshops, you know, and my supervisors were very, very helpful, of course, and the staff were very helpful as well. And I believe that, you know, I believe that we could be better at catering to students as well, you know. And I noticed this because I did not have a lot of access to preparing my chapter 1, 2, 3, my chapter workshops. I did not have the workshops on qualitative, on quantitative, you know, because as I see in Malaysia, we are you know, we have access to a lot of workshops. Like, it can be overwhelming, you know, and I think some workshop will be very helpful, and of course you have to only choose the ones that are relevant to you, you know, and if you're not sure if they're relevant to you, my suggestion is to always discuss with your supervisors, you know, because, for example, I think the thing that I learned was that before I started my PhD, because when I did my master's, I did not know the existence of Mendeley. I did not know the existence of accuracy. I wish I had known, you know. So before I started my PhD journey, I made sure that I have these skills. I have this knowledge of the softwares that I need to use, and they have become very, very helpful. Okay, so I think with the support that you will get from your supervisors, from your school, from your university, you know, they can help you to be more they can help you to be more prepared, you know. So I don't know if the sharing that I have done today would make sense to you, you know, but I hope it does, because I think from my experience, this kind of sharings is good to go to, is good to be involved, you know, because this is when you actually meet other students, you know. So to be honest, one of the reasons that I go for courses or workshops at the university is so that I can meet other people, you know, so that I'm not cooped in my own room, in my own workstation, so that I can meet other people. And as we talk, as we discuss, as we get to know each other, oh, you know, you're from the first year, oh, you're from the final year, so what, have you done this, have you done that? So these kind of questions, this kind of discussions is very much helpful, you know. Okay, so I think that's it from me, Dr. Shafa. If anyone has questions, please, I am more than happy to share.
Wow, that is really mind-blowing, Dr. Zurina, your sharing session, right? So thanks for the inspiring talk. So now we are open for Q&A. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and you can always use the chat box as well to ask questions. Thank you.
Well, of course, if there's no question, then no problem.
Or maybe you want to ask, you know, Dr. Zurina's experience in dealing, I don't know, maybe challenges in terms of time management, or maybe in terms of, okay, Amar is saying that I like your fashion style. Okay. Is there any
Hello,
questions? Yeah.
hi, Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
I'm Nadia. Uh, Dr. Zurina, just a quick question, yeah? So, as a like there are so many PG students out there who are kind of like I would say lost in their way, you know, in looking for what they want to do for their research. So they have been attending like so many courses and workshops, and sometimes they get too overwhelmed, you know, with so many workshops, especially in here in Malaysia. um I mean, we can't deny that workshops are very helpful, you know, and research courses as well. So and when we go to one workshop to another, so they could probably like a lot too many information to digest, things like that. So what do you say about it? You know, these PG students who have been attending like too many workshops, and you know they get overwhelmed by it, and then too many information. You know, so I mean, where I mean at times they need to clarify on what they receive at the workshop. You know, your take on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Nadia. So, okay. So my take on it, I think it's good to go to this workshop, as I said earlier. You know, like I said, I also went to many workshops, especially in my first year, because I want to get out from my room. I don't want to be cooped up in indoors. And if it gets too overwhelming, I think probably the best thing to do is to always consult your supervisor, because I think it's always challenging to actually choose which workshops work for you. You know, you can go to many workshops, but at the end of the day, my assumption is all workshops will talk about the same thing. You know, some people have give probably will share with you the structure that they have, the framework that they have. Another researcher have another one. So it's what goes with you. You know, what works for you. I think that is very important to identify. And don't be too how do we say this? Don't be um, too you can actually go to courses, but choose the right ones. You know, don't go for one presenter only. Don't go to one group only. You know, you go to many so that you can have a lot of more experiences from different people. Because I noticed this in Malaysia, we have Dr. Nurul Fadli, we have Prof. Nur Zaidi from UITM, we have who else do we have? I noticed we have Dr. Shairul, I think his name. So we have all of these experts, you know, we have all of these people sharing with us. But at the end of the day, and we have the SG, at the end of the day, choose what's right for you. And if you're not sure, if it's too overwhelming and you become unsure, then I think the best thing to do is to always consult your supervisor, because your supervisor is, at the end of the day, your supervisor is the one who has the authority to advise you. Yes, they may not be examiners. Yes, they may not be the ones who tell you, okay, you pass, you don't pass, but they are the ones who have authority to advise you on what they think is the best. Because obviously, I believe that all supervisors would always think of the best for their students. So what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, at the end of the day, you know, go back to you, go back to you, go back to your supervisor, go back to your school, go back to your faculty. What is it that they want? So when my students ask, what about this, what about this, you know, I would say refer to the guidelines. Always refer to the guidelines. How many words do I need to do for the proposal? How many chapters do I need to have? Always go to the guidelines. And one of the things that my supervisor did is, rather than saying go to the guidelines, they said go to the thesis. Go to the previous thesis, you know, read the previous thesis, read how they argue, read how they look at how they structure their thesis. So at the end of the day, it's your project. You know, your supervisor might be involved, might be supervising you, but it's your project. You know best. You know, you know best, but of course there's another authority that you have to consider. Okay, So I think we have a lot of questions here, Dr.
Yeah,
Shafa.
yeah. Maybe we can go one by one, right? Okay. Maybe we go with
Sure.
Nadia Azihan's questions first about the selections of university, whether it's important or not in pursuing postgraduate studies.
Yeah. So thank you, Nadia Azihan, another Nadia. I think I personally don't think it's that important, because I think the most important thing is your supervisor. You know, whatever the school does, whatever the university ranking is, at the end of the day, it's your supervisor, whether you can work with your supervisor. Because I heard many stories about having not so good supervisor. I wouldn't say bad, but not so good supervisors, you know. So, and you know, my dad always share stories with me about his colleagues saying, you know, some people say, oh, you know, the supervisor, yeah, I have your thesis with me for 6 months, but no feedback. You know, always carrying the thesis, but there's no feedback for 6 months, and not a lot of people can persevere with that. You know, so at the end of the day, your supervisor needs to be the ones that who you can work with, you know, who you're comfortable with. If you don't know, then ask the previous students. You know, some people, they prefer laid back, they prefer, you know, supervisors not pushing them. So if you prefer that kind of supervisors, go for that kind of supervisors. But if you prefer someone who's pushing you because you want to graduate on time, then, you know, go for someone who gives you deadlines, you know, who gives you structure. Because my supervisor did not give me structure at all. I had to do almost everything on my own. I just consult them, you know, and they always ask me, okay, what do you think about that? You know, so it's always you justifying whatever it is that you do, you justify to your supervisors. And if that makes sense, then, you know, then you can go along with the supervisor. But some people, they think about ranking, because sometimes ranking will be helpful with your work later, because some universities, they look at university rankings before they take you. But I don't think that happens too much in Malaysia. Yeah, so I think, I don't know what others think, but that's my personal opinion based on my experience.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Zoe, for that answer. I think it's very interesting. So, next question we have from Arisa Asman. She said, "Hi, Ms. Zoe. I would like to ask, what are the significant challenges you face during the journey?"
Okay, thank you, Alpha. Can I answer together with what Amar is asking, considering my lowest point during my journey? I think the lowest point where I cried a lot is when, because we were asked to finish in 3 years, right? And the pressure that I have from finishing in 3 years is too much that I cried a lot. We obviously cried with my parents. And after I accepted the fact that I won't be able to finish in 3 years, it calms me down and it helps with my work better. I think the main challenge is to have this stigma or this mindset that you have to finish in 3 years. Well, of course you can finish in 3 years if you can, but if you can't, it's fine. You know, you have your own time. Everybody is different. They have their own time. They have their own challenges. They have their own predicaments, you know, tests that people have. But at the end of the day, it's not them, it's you. It's you who's facing it, you know. So I think with that I think, because I cried a lot. In my final 3 years, at the end of that 3 years, I cried a lot because I don't think I can finish, and I think I'm disappointing a lot of people. So that puts a lot of pressure, and that, I think, is really, really, really one of the main things that I think was the main challenge, not only significant, but the main challenge that I actually faced. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Dr. Zoe. So, basically, you allowed yourself to pace in the middle of the chaos.
Yeah, I had to accept the fact that I can't. As soon as I accepted it, you know, I became calmer. I was calmer. Yeah. So, and I could focus on my work better.
Great, thank you. Next question is from Azmina Ainun. She said, "Hi, Ms. Zoe. Can you share some advices on how you choose your research topic and how you keep finishing it despite lack of information or motivation?"
Okay, thank you, Azmina. Another interesting one, I think, because my proposal was a totally different one. Like, to be honest, I had a total different change of topic. So I wanted to do, I still wanted to do spoken academic discourse, but I had a list of research questions that I list out, statement of problem that I list out. But as soon as I met my supervisors, this is what they said: argue your problem. They asked me to justify my problem, So as I justified my problem, I go further and I feel like, okay, this has to change. And to be honest, my research, the last title, because the first title is a goner, and then I had that second title, which lasted up until before I submitted. Excuse me. And interestingly, the topic that I have now, the title that I have now, actually came 100% from my data. So my data was the one that built my argument. It builds the whole chapter. I mean, as soon as I got my data, as soon as I got my interpretation, as soon as I've done my analysis, then the thesis goes like this. Some people do it like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But mine is, yes, I do 1, 2, 3, but it stops there. As soon as I do 4, everything changes. Very interesting, isn't it? So you can't be that set. Okay, this is a topic that I want to do. Okay, whatever it is, I don't want to change it. This is what I want to do. No, at the end of the day, you do your topic now, and then you have your data. Your data will bloom beautifully. You have no idea how beautiful it will become and how satisfying it is as soon as you see it blooms, and you become passionate about it. So to say that there is a lack of motivation, I can't say there is a lack of motivation, because I was deeply motivated by the data that I have. It was an overwhelming big set of data, but it's so frustrating at the same time, because I can only choose a couple to be put into my thesis. But at the end of the day, that data, so the topic comes from your data. As soon as you have your data, then everything will go smoothly, inshallah. Okay. The next
Beautiful
one.
answer. Beautiful answer, Ms. Zoe. So next is from Imran bin Tariq. Salam and hi, Dr. Zurina. PhD candidates or graduates often describe the Viva thesis defense as an intimidating event. How was your experience in defending your thesis and dealing with your panel? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Imran. Very interesting question again, I think. So my Viva experience was very calming, despite the nerves. It wasn't a defense, to be honest. It was more of a discussion, rather than, I didn't have to, because I know, but of course, different universities, different system, right? So you can't expect everyone to be the same, or every system to be the same. But I know in Malaysia, you have to prepare a presentation, so you have to present, and then the panel will ask you questions. But what happens with mine was that, well, of course, I was nervous. I entered the room. There were only 2 people, which were the examiners. So normally, only examiners and the candidate themselves will be in a small room. And so they asked me, so do you need to drink? Do you need a drink? Are you okay? Is the room too warm? Is the room too cold? I was down with a slight fever at the time. So I said, I'm okay. So as I shiver, I put my bag down. I took out my thesis. I had my notebooks and everything, the 3 notebooks in my bag, but I didn't use them. So they started with, so how are you? They started with questions. It was very warming, I think. It was very welcoming. It wasn't overwhelming at all. It wasn't intimidating at all, to be honest, my experience. And they started, okay, so they asked me, so are you comfortable now? Can we start? So they ask questions. They ask questions rather than asking, why do you do this? So they ask, so can you justify why is it like this? Why didn't you use this theory? So it's the kind of questions that they asked me, I think was very warming. And was very also, yes, I was nervous, but I wasn't intimidated, so they were very welcoming. They asked questions in a happy, not to say happy manner, but they're smiling, so it's not like they're trying to attack you. So obviously, dealing with that kind of panel is different from dealing with a panel that is intimidating, obviously. So yeah, so I don't know if it would be helpful with my experience for you in Malaysia, because I know the system is a little bit different. But yeah, that was my experience. It was good. It was very warming, very, very. Inshallah, Imran, luck. I think one of the main, I think that my journey was rather smooth compared to others, right? And I think one of the main reasons is my parents. I think it's the doa that they have. So if you still have your parents, ask them to pray for you. I remember my parents always praying for me, always like do solat hajat, when we have exams. It's that kind of prayer that you would need. Sometimes it's a small gesture, to be honest. Sometimes, okay, you shake the hands of your parents before you go. Small gesture, but subhanAllah, the effect that it will have towards your experience is overwhelming. Yeah, I think.
Beautiful
I hope that helps,
response.
Imran.
Beautiful response, Dr. Zoe. I think it's a beautiful approach to for your examiners to make you feel welcome and warm. So next question is actually from Nadia Izati Nordin. Dear doctor, what is your advice for student that has no good relationship with supervisor and not enough grant funding for the project? Should the student use their personal money?
Okay, interesting. I don't know if my advice would be helpful or would be practical for you, but I think it is very, I think that the power dynamic between a supervisor and a student relationship is very weird. Some people have good ones, some people have problematic ones. But at the end of the day, they're your supervisor. If it's too late for you to change your supervisor, then head on. It will be difficult, but I think at this, if it's too late at that stage, there's not much you can do, especially if the supervisor uses grant money to pay for you, if you're a GRA. So I think in that sense, I don't know if the supervisor is open for discussions, So if they are, discuss your expectations, I think as I become a supervisor, from the supervisor's perspective now, I think it would be frustrating if students don't come to you, because you are you're there to help them, but they don't come to you. But there are also supervisors who don't want to help you, So if you're dealing with that kind of supervisor, then my suggestion is to always refer to others, to your colleagues, to your friends, to your other PG friends, and yeah, and I think at the end of the day, it's that dynamic that you have to negotiate with. I think it's difficult. I know, especially if you're depending on grant money, and especially if your research is based on grant money. So it is difficult, I understand. But should you use your personal money? I know how difficult it can be for PG students, but I do not suggest to do that. because there's always I don't know if KPT has or provides funding nowadays, but if they do, please apply. And there are some universities, try asking. I don't know if the graduate school will have some funding to help the students, but try asking. There's no harm, you know. But I'm really sorry, Nadia Izati, but I don't know. I don't really know how to deal with that, because it's I can't suggest, I can't suggest, okay, yes, you should use your own money. No, you should not use your own money, but it's what you think is, at the end of the day, you have to make the decision and go with it, So I wish you luck, Nadia. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Zori. Okay, so next we have a question from Kru Aimi Arisha. Hello, Dr. Zurina. Would you mind sharing what you studied during your PhD? How did you come up for the title, and how did you find the suitable supervisor? Thank you so much, Dr. Zurina.
Okay, thank you for the question, Ku Aimi. What I did was I looked at Malaysian students' identity negotiation or construction when they're in seminars. So I looked at Malaysian students in Malaysia and also Malaysian students in the UK. So what I found was that Malaysian students obviously have different identities, right? Different students have different identities. I only have 8 participants in the UK, and I have about 11 or 12 in Malaysia, main ones. And from my observation, we always say, I mean, the research that I have, the readings that I have done always say that Malaysian students are passive. Malaysian students don't talk in class. So what I found was very interesting. I found that Malaysian students do talk, okay, and Malaysian students do contribute, okay, but there are those who do not. But it's not because they're not smart. It's not because they're not academically inclined. Because I have this one case which I always share, where this participant, she was a little bit quiet in the class. However, she's the go-to person outside of the class. So being quiet in class doesn't mean that you're not good. It doesn't mean that you're not smart, but it just means that that's not the way you study. So my conclusion was that, or my recommendation was that we should be flexible. Like academic institutions, faculty members should be flexible with however students want to be in the class. We can encourage them, okay, but my suggestion was that we don't force them to speak. And how I came about the title was, like I said, from the data. The data was bloomingly beautiful, and because from the data I found the theory that I wanted to use with the data, and then from there I moved, like I said, moved from the data to the end, to the other chapters. And how I found my supervisor, I think I got lucky, to be honest, because I had no contact with my supervisors whatsoever. What I did was I contacted the school, I gave them my proposal at the time, and the proposal was given to potential supervisor, and then she agreed to it, and then I was there. So, and then my first time meeting, my first contact was when I wanted to make the first appointment with her. And then we discussed further. And then I was given another supervisor, because at the university we have to have 2 supervisors. So yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Kwaimi. I think that's the last question, right?
No, actually, we have one more, Dr. Zoe,
okay.
which is from me.
Okay.
So,
you can ask me later, Alpha.
Where? Okay.
No, okay, go. Proceed.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zurina, for your answers. So, as you can see, we have a few undergraduate students here that do have the dream to continue until their PhD. they know it's like a long way to go, but what are some of the things that they can start developing now in order to make their journey during their, master's, PhD more manageable, in your opinion? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alpha. Good question, I think. So, if you're an undergraduate, I think my suggestion first would be to be overwhelmed with the skills that you need. If you're into quantitative research, then go for SPSS courses, go for AMOS courses, go for that kind of courses. If you're into qualitative, then go for Atlas TI courses, go for NVivo courses. Those are softwares that you can use to make yourself easier, to make your life easier later. And if you, obviously with Mendeley, Zotero, that will be very helpful for your reference, managing your reference. And other things is to develop your interest. So what's your interest? Don't just, for example, if you're into identity, if you think you're into identity now, be more open and explore other subfields of applied linguistics or linguistics. If you think you're into education now, the education, we have a lot of subfields. If you're into TESOL, if you're into IT, so now it's a time for you to explore the world, explore what's out there, because every day there are new studies done, there are new studies published. So you don't know whether the thing that you wanted to do today will be available in 10 years, or 5 years for you, probably 5 to 10 years, right? And so it's those things that you have to consider. And as you move along, understand the theories. For example, if you're some of you now, I think, are in your first year or probably second year, right? So what you can do is prepare for your FYP. I know it's really, really early because your FYP won't be until your final year, but be prepared. Because what I did for my master's was, I know what I wanted to, I know the field that I wanted to do, which was reading. I did reading, people, and so my first semester, I did my assignments on reading. So as I read, I develop the knowledge about reading. My second semester, any any assignments given, I try to relate with reading, and that still develops. And then the third semester and the final semester. So as I got to my final semester during my master's, because I did in 2 years, I was overwhelmed with the reading theories that I was reading. So if you can actually think about what you want to do today or what you want to do for your FYP, develop your knowledge now, develop the theories, read on the theories that you think, oh, okay, that would be interesting. Oh, okay, that would be interesting. So explore, because I think now I think if you're in first or second year, most of you would have more courses on the English language, but you don't know about communication later, right? So as you move to your final years, your third and final year, you'll do more communication courses. So you might want to focus on, you don't know, maybe you want to develop, or you develop the like for communication. So yeah, so I think, I don't know if that's helpful, but I think that's from my experience anyway.
Thank you, Dr. Zurina. All right, that's it. We are done with the questions.
Thank you.
Dr. Shafa?
All right, thank you, Dr. Zurina, for interesting and beautiful sharing session with all of us today. So if I may conclude, basically points that you guys, the postgraduate students, have to consider is, don't forget to jot down notes, talk, discuss, and attend conferences or even gossips with your friends, because you will never know what might come from the
Very
gossips, right?
helpful. Gossiping,
Very
very
helpful.
helpful.
Right? And then don't forget to enjoy life as well. Go for a walk, go for, a break, because sometimes you have to unwind yourself, right? Okay, so I think that's all from us today. And for FPK students, you may stay because I'm going to have a brief explanations about postgraduate sessions after this. For the rest, thank you very much for your participants, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shafa.
Alpha, could you please share the slide? Thank you.